For the entirety of cinema, there have been those films. You know, those particular works that define a generation, the game changers, the works that millions still remember decades and soon centuries after their release. A few good examples would be Casablanca, The Wizard of Oz, Psycho, Jaws, The Matrix, and of course, The Dark Knight. Today, we live in a world where we are constantly getting new superhero movies and sequels to those superhero movies, and then reboots and sequels to the reboots. In this super saturated environment, Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight has and will continue to be the gold standard by which every comic book, action, and crime drama is judged. Now, that's not to say that it's my absolute favorite or that nothing else comes close, but even when another great film is released, we always say, yeah, that was good and all, but it was no Dark Knight. It's been this way since the July of 2008. Man, it felt like yesterday that everyone and their mothers were hyping the dung out of it. Everybody loved it and went on to quote and reference it for the rest of their lives.
He turns to me and he says, "Why so serious?"
There were those I Believe in Harvey Dent posters everywhere. In 2008, I was still a little too young to see it myself. Yeah, this probably isn't a movie for children, but man, we all watched history being made that summer. Even though The Dark Knight is 10 years old, its presence can still be felt to this day. I love other movies in the genre like Spider-Man 2 and its predecessor Batman Begins just as much, but The Dark Knight is the one everyone most fondly remembers. So what did Christopher Nolan do in 2008 that sent shockwaves through our culture? What is so amazing about The Dark Knight that makes it so fondly remembered 10 years after its debut? Let's take a look. One of the major reasons why The Dark Knight stands out in a sea of nothing special superhero movies is that The Dark Knight is not a superhero movie, although I'll lump it in with the others for the sake of simplicity. Yeah, it has Batman, yeah, all the characters are based off their comic book counterparts, but The Dark Knight's story is not that of your typical silly comic book action adventure. Nobody has any superpowers or crazy gadgets. Everything is grounded in reality. There isn't any supervillain trying to take over the world or something like that. There's no grand master plan for the hero to foil. Although plenty of humor and levity is used throughout, it's never used as a crutch. Heck, Batman isn't even the hero of his own movie, but I'll get there soon. The Dark Knight avoids pretty much every superhero movie trope. Even when it starts doing the whole saving the love interest thing, well...
It's alright, listen. Somebody once told me the world is gonna roll me.
This is all because Nolan chose to make The Dark Knight a crime drama instead. Much of the story revolves around Batman, Gordon, and Harvey Dent working to take out the remnants of Falcone's crime ring, now led by Maroni. Mob banks, money laundering, jurisdiction, and RICO cases all come into play here in a desperate attempt to clean up the streets. This creates a more and more desperate situation for the mob. Just a year before Batman's arrival, nobody would have crossed them. Now, they're holding on for dear life. With no other option, they turn to a nuisance who's been robbing their banks, the Joker. As Alfred puts it,
"You crossed the line first, sir. You squeezed them, you hammered them to the point of desperation. And in their desperation, they turned to a man they didn't fully understand."
As the story continues, it doesn't turn into an elaborate villain plot. Joker just begins offing politicians and lawmen, causing a headache for law enforcement, who need judges and prosecutors crazy enough to go against the mob. And also for Batman, but more on that later. When it comes to the Joker, the film transitions from using well thought out and swift tactics for bringing down organized crime, to questionable, morally gray tactics for stopping terrorists. This comes with a new sense of weight, urgency, and themes to be explored. Also, you gotta love the amount of setups and payoffs present here. They really help tie the film together into one epic narrative. You get so many of those moments. Here are just a couple of examples. Lucius using his cell phone to map out an office building for Batman. Bruce then uses this concept in the climax to catch the Joker, using every cell phone in Gotham to map the ins and outs of the city and find him. This ties into Coleman Reese, who noticed significant amounts of funding flowing into telecommunications research, causing him to do more digging into applied sciences and all the missing equipment. This comes back around right before Reese goes on air to reveal Batman's identity until Joker orders a hit on him to keep him from ruining all the fun. A smaller one would be Harvey mentioning a nickname given him by Gordon's men, to which Gordon denies knowing about, and that's that. Later on, after half his face burnt, this comes up again, to which Gordon reveals the nickname to be Two-Face, due to Harvey seeming like a chill dude while simultaneously digging up dirt on officers at Internal Affairs. So overall, what we see from Nolan isn't some cliche, predictable, by-the-numbers superhero flick, but an engaging and emotional crime drama that just so happens to star everyone's favorite psychopath. The three main players in The Dark Knight are Batman, Dent, and Gordon. Although they're working together for a common cause, we learn a lot about them through their conflicts with one another. There's the battle between being ideological and being practical. Gordon takes the pragmatic approach. In his fight against the mob, he is willing to use cops he knows are dirty. Honest cops are in short supply, so he's willing to use the help of whoever he can get, leading to tension as you're unsure who or when someone will sabotage his efforts. Harvey Dent, on the other hand, is the idealist. He wants Gordon to sweep his staff clean of any corruption and is willing to do whatever it takes to put the mob bosses behind bars. Although it sounds, well, ideal, this puts a big target on Dent's head. Criminals are constantly trying to off him, yet he doesn't seem to mind. Harvey almost has a death wish. After Dent's fiancée Rachel is killed and he goes crazy, he targets all the corrupt cops in Gordon's squad, who he blames for Rachel's death, eventually leading up to his confrontation with Commissioner Gordon. There's also the conflict between Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne. I gotta say, this is one of the few times I actually appreciate a love triangle. Rachel and Bruce started having a thing at the end of Begins, but instead of going steady, Rachel just told Bruce she'll wait for the day Gotham no longer needs Batman for them to be together. Now, enter The Dark Knight. Gotham is much brighter and cleaner. Batman has inspired some of the city's inhabitants to stand up to corruption. One of these people being Dent himself, who launches an all-out assault on the mob. Instead of Batman, Dent becomes the one who creates hope for the future of the city and inspires people. Bruce sees the day coming when Gotham will no longer need Batman. But in the meantime, Rachel has gone for the guy who is fixing Gotham, who isn't yet insane, probably has parents, and doesn't spend his nights punching poor people. Bruce is eager to start things up with Rachel again, but friend zoned, got him. Now let's take this and look at Bruce's character arc as a whole. He ends Batman Begins and begins The Dark Knight, trying to give hope to the inhabitants of Gotham by being a hero who bags criminal scum. But as the Joker pushes and tests him and the citizens of Gotham, demanding Batman reveal himself or else more people die, the people begin to want the same. Tired of dead cops, they're just like, okay dude, turn yourself in. Bruce has to accept that he's not the hero of The Dark Knight. This is what he struggles with. Harvey is. He's just sloppy seconds. Without a mask, Dent cleaned the streets better than Batman ever could, getting hundreds of criminals bagged in a single swoop. He's the face Gotham looks up to, the one who inspires. So in the end, after his demise, Batman is willing to give up trying to be the hero.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. I can do those things, because I'm not a hero. Not like Dent. I killed those people. That's what I can be.
No, you can't. You're not.
I'm whatever Gotham needs me to be.
Instead of preserving his own image, he chooses to save Dent by taking all the blame for his actions, because that's what the people need him to be right now. Bruce is willing to make the difficult choice, sacrifice himself so that Gotham still has its true hero. He also has to learn that, although he inspired Dent, most of the people who he inspires are crazies. Without his message of order, Joker wouldn't have been inspired to spread his own message of chaos. And he also finds himself having to deal with a street gang who dresses up like him and tries to fight crime. Again, every normal person is looking up to Harvey, not him. And he has to learn to deal with that. How does one sum up how good the Joker is in one paragraph? I don't know, but I'm gonna try. You've probably heard it 1,000 times before, but Heath Ledger's performance here is just phenomenal. How does anyone forget such a chilling, wild yet comedic performance? His look, his mannerisms, and even his improvisations are just perfect. This incarnation of the already legendary villain is certainly one of the best antagonists to ever be on screen. But of course, Joker wouldn't be as great of a villain if he were to verse Spider-Man or something. Batman and Joker both work together so well, the perfect yin to each other's yang. They're both crazies who want to spread a message throughout Gotham. The Joker is not as much of a character as he is a force of nature, an agent of total chaos. His goal isn't money or some material thing, nah, he burns millions without blinking an eye. All Joker wants is to spread chaos and to send a message that all our structures, our organizations, and society in general is all just a sick joke. He tries to prove that at our very core, humans are chaotic. We just go along with society because it makes us feel comfortable. We feel safety knowing that everything in our world is planned and accounted for. But when the dung hits the fan and people are left to their own devices, we revert back to our chaotic nature and brutalize each other. Again, unlike other comic book movie villains who want a tangible thing like money, world domination, or half the population to be wiped out, all Joker wants is to send a message.
All you care about is money. This town deserves a better class of criminal. And I'm gonna give it to him. It's not about money. It's about sending a message.
This puts him in direct competition with Batman, who wants to restore order, safety, and a message of hope to the people of Gotham. Joker's form of victory would be getting either Batman, the incorruptible symbol of order, or Gotham citizens to partake in the anarchy. He tests Batman and his moral code by giving him the chance to run him over with the Batpod, to which Batman almost does, but ultimately backs down from. Joker tests the people themselves twice. He wants them to join in on the fun, because who wouldn't? First is when he promises to blow up a hospital if Reese isn't dead within an hour. Because of this, the citizens start causing mayhem themselves out of desperation like the Joker had hoped. The second test is the whole two boats climax. Will seemingly innocent people be willing to blow up a boat of inmates for their own survival? Will inmates blow them up? Or will nobody kill each other and Joker kills them both? Batman wins that battle and proves himself to be incorruptible, unlike Dent, who he triggered too hard. The battle between Batman and the Joker never becomes a fistfight like most action flicks. It's purely a battle of ideas. Which ideology will rule Gotham? Chaos or order? So when Dent turns, Batman needs to take the fall to prevent Joker from winning by robbing the people of hope and showing that anyone can revert to their primitive savage ways. Another awesome thing about the Joker is how small his desire for self-preservation is. He is so willing to spread his message to win the ideological battle that he constantly puts his own life on the line. He's willing to lay down his life every 10 minutes if it means proving himself right. He didn't know Batman wouldn't turn him into street meat, or that the coin toss would go in his favor, or that Batman would save him in the end. Heck, Joker wasn't even sure he'd get out of the bank heist without William Fichtner blowing him to smithereens. He lives by the moment, coming up with crazy plans on the spot and acting upon them. This is a recurring problem with villains in that they have super elaborate plans that need tons of foresight and script reading to work. This kind of applies here, but the fact that Joker is coming up with everything on the spot kind of patches this up and makes him look even more chaotic.
Do I really look like a guy with a plan? You know what I am? I'm a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do with one if I caught it. You know, I just do things.
But anyways, it's the philosophical conflict, the trials he puts Batman through, and the unforgettable performance that puts Heath Ledger's Joker on a legendary status. Or a ledger-dary status. One of the reasons why I believe The Dark Knight is able to define an entire era of film is not only its impact or being the gold standard of comic films, but also because of how it tackles the big ideas and questions of its time. Maybe nowadays we feel detached from 2008. I mean, at this point, every few years feel entirely different from the next. But The Dark Knight was released at the very end of the Bush administration, and smack in the middle of the War on Terror we still find ourselves in. During this time, and I guess still today, national security, privacy, and the Patriot Act were hot-button issues. In this worldwide hunt for terrorists, it was frequently asked, What lengths the government was willing to go to ensure the safety of the nation. Was it okay for the FBI to sift through people's phones, email, and financial records without a court order, even if it meant they might catch someone with bad intentions? Is security worth the loss of privacy and/or liberty? What about the issues of waterboarding and torture? Would catching a terrorist like Bin Laden have been worth it? The Dark Knight deals with these issues as Batman is desperate to catch the Joker and resorts to the movie equivalent of wiretapping in order to catch him. Aw man, again, the setup and payoff. In a previous scene, as Bruce was having dinner with Rachel, Dent, and a ballerina, yeah, don't ask, Rachel and Dent began debating the ethics of vigilantism. In desperate times, should total power be handed over to an appointed individual for him to swiftly solve the crisis, like Cincinnatus, who I mentioned in my Infinity War review, and Julius Caesar, who Rachel brings up? Should Batman be above the law with unlimited power to ensure Gotham's safety, or is it too dangerous because Caesar? In my opinion, The Dark Knight argues against such power. Even Bruce himself agrees with Lucius, rigging a self-destruct on the Obama machine once Lucius enters his name. Yes, it helps him catch the Joker, but the danger of such technology is understood and presented to the audience.
Beautiful, isn't it?
Beautiful, unethical, dangerous.
We may very well win in the end thanks to such technology, but the means are far too costly to be justified by the ends. Also on the same train of thought is killing. Batman has a strict code of conduct, and in his little booklet of rules, rule number 1 out of 1 is to never kill. He doesn't see himself as the distributor of justice. It's not up to him whether or not somebody deserves to live. That would be a lot of power at his disposal. Batman's one rule seems noble at first glance, but what do you do when a terrorist like Joker comes along? Do you let him live, or start making exceptions to the rule? When there's somebody so bent on causing disaster, isn't it your moral duty to kill them? By the end of the movie, we're wondering whether if what once seemed noble is actually a weakness. With Joker still alive, he's always able to break out and kill more people and cause more mayhem. Tying all this together is the question, do the ends justify the means? The Dark Knight says no. Although The Dark Knight itself is great, its impact is less than stellar to say the least, at least in my opinion. Afterwards, every movie desperately wanted to be The Dark Knight. From that point on, there became a trend of taking fun properties and making them dark and edgy. A giant vacuum loomed over Hollywood and sucked the fun out of different franchises. Spider-Man, once funny and campy even at its worst, was turned into the obnoxious and comedically dark Amazing Spider-Man. Superman, although he's seen better days, became a joyless, boring monster who levels buildings. 007 saw the same treatment with mixed results. Overall, the artistic landscape just seemed dark and gloomy, yet The Dark Knight itself isn't even that dark. Yes, some scenes are intense, I guess, and may not be appropriate for young children, but there was plenty of comedic levity, bright lighting, and the film never took itself so seriously to the point of self-parody, like Dawn of Justice. Even with heavy themes and ideas, The Dark Knight is still a very watchable and enjoyable flick, so for that, I'm not upset at all that you ruined Spider-Man. No, I'm not angry at all. Thank you, Christopher and Jonathan Nolan, for going so ham on this screenplay. Batman Begins was already awesome. You could have taken a break and written a cliché superhero rom-com starring Bruce and Alfred or something. But you didn't. You went the extra mile to give us one of the best films ever. You did that for us. Thank you. Okay, in all seriousness, The Dark Knight is an awesome movie, despite its dreary impact on cinema. I didn't even choose to talk about the action and visuals because I wanted to focus mainly on the writing, but they're awesome too. I mean, like 99% of what you see on screen is practical effects, so of course they look real. But man, the screenplay is amazing. Bruce Wayne, Harvey Dent, the Joker, heroism, inspiration, power, security versus privacy, the struggle between chaos and order. There's so much epicness in one 2.5 hour long movie. The Dark Knight is a masterpiece that captures the conflicts and debates of its time and presents the audience with new and engaging characters, earth-shattering performances, well thought out character arcs, and a fresh crime drama take on the superhero movie, while simultaneously either avoiding cliches or turning them on their head.
Harvey, it's okay. It's alright, listen.
Did somebody say boom?
This is why we so fondly remember The Dark Knight, and regard it as the gold standard for all summer action movies. So, Dark Knight, happy 10th birthday. You have held up extraordinarily well. I'm sure we're going to hear much more about you in the decades to come. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to please leave a like and subscribe. See you next week.